What's good, guys? It's your boy CS. It has been a minute. I am currently traveling, so have been trying to get a free moment to give you guys an update. So we'll have a quick one now and see where we're at. Let's look at the tether dominance and see where we were from last week. I think it was around here when we were looking at this wick, whether it would fill. And technically it has. And we are therefore now potentially starting the run of alt season. Now, we may come back next week and test the 6.18. As you may remember, this is a very key line of weekly, support resistance, as you know, inversely correlated to Bitcoin. So we may come back and test it and then come back down. I think we do need an extra test just to see whether this does break and have another wick to the upside, which could, in correlation, as a lot of the bears keep telling us, there's a CME gap around here, there's a CME gap, it needs to get filled. It doesn't necessarily need to get filled. As I had said in the VIP chat group, for those that are in there, that from statistical data, not every single CME gap needs to get filled. Not every single one. So I think out of 10, they said it was like 6 out of 7, the data. And also, if we look at the SPX, not always do the wicks always get filled. Look at this gap. This gap didn't get filled till, well, technically it didn't get filled till here, till August. See that massive gap there? Even when we came down, we missed that gap, right? So there's a lot of gaps that don't technically get filled. And, you know, you could argue that even if you go on the 4-hourly chart, or is it 2-hourly? I can't remember which one it is. There is a chart that shows gaps. I mean, look, there was a gap there, and then it had to come all the way down to fill it. Do you see where I'm going with this? And then you could argue, well, that gap's not filled. That needs to get filled. See where I'm going with this? So, yeah, SME gaps do have their place, but I think, look where we're at. It's a bit difficult for us to, ascertain whether that will actually occur or not. So we just need to be careful. In terms of lower, actually, we'll start on higher time frames and go to my favorite chart, which I've not really been looking. I've changed the colors on the spider lines just to jazz it up a bit. Looks like we're going to attack, if we continue this week, the 60k region, and that would hit resistance right on the money on the spider line. Again, with regards to where we're at in the cycle, this is technically a accumulation range. And again, we could argue that this historic support line we did touch last week, and now we're on our way onto another resistance line, which again is around that 60.45k region. So they all coincide with one another with where we are heading to. And the descending broadening wedge around weekly resistance there and there. I mean, there is weekly resistance there. So just a few things to be wary of. Oops. And in terms of the point of control, this is the point of control that I keep telling everybody to look out for, because if we go on a daily, these two lines, the horizontal zone, right, this yellow zone, this is the zone where we've had massive support each and every single time. Now, usually we want to get out of this zone very quickly for the bulls, and we want to come and test this trend line here at the 61.4 region. And if we can break out, then we want to retest, and then we want to go flying. That's it. No more games anymore. Bull market is on. Parabolic moves are coming. Now, in terms of the bearish stance, their bearish stance still technically is in play, right? Because lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs. And really, they're looking at it from a weekly perspective rather than a daily perspective, where they're like, yeah, that's fine, but you still not hit a higher high. And this could come all the way down and produce a lower low, is what they will say, the bears. So it's just something to have in mind. But like I said, when we had extreme fear, that's always a good opportunity to buy. And whether it's a relief rally or not, there have been a lot of gains that we made from here, taking this upwards. When we end up at around 60k region, that's where I want to be a bit more conservative as to what the next move is. As you can see, we bounced off the 50 weekly EMA now once, twice, and now thrice. Still not hit the 20 EMA, but if we look at where the 20 EMA is, funnily enough, it's at around that 60.4, 60.5k region. Like I said, all these areas historically are there for psychological purposes. And look, even if we crashed into this cluster, we probably come up to the turquoise daily EMA. And right now, Bitcoin is bouncing off the 20 EMA and the top point of the point of control. And this looks bullish right now. And finally, the last EMA ribbon that we need to take out is this 200. And again, we want to take it out, come back, retest it, and then go. Now, bearish stance on the lower time frame is we're still in this rising wedge, which if we do break out, would take us further down to the downside. Don't know what the possibility of that is right now, but if we look at where the Nikkei is at the moment, today it's having a bit of an awful day currently. It's rejected the 20 EMA and the 200 yesterday and today, and looks like it's on its way down. If we look at the 4 hourly, has rejected the turquoise, the 100, and now the 50, and now coming back for the 20. But if we look at the US 30, the Dow Jones, that's flying. That's doing numbers. It's actually bounced yesterday off the 20 EMA, and off the weekly EMA, you could technically say it's bounced off the 20 EMA there as well. And it's primed actually to go for an all-time high in October, November, which would be great for Bitcoin because, as we say, it's directly correlative. And the same with the SPX. Bounced off the 20 EMA yesterday, and so far bounced off the 20 EMA on the weekly. Very, very bullish signs. Whether you like it or not, very, very bullish signs. Now, we'll keep an eye on the Nikkei just to see what happens, but I think from where Bitcoin is right now, it does look like all of this is just dips that we need to be accumulating. Again, be a bit scarce with the leverage. Do be careful because a lot of the altcoins aren't performing how really they should be. Like you would expect these to be flying by now. And especially with Brett, if we just look at Brett for a second, this is the weekly resistance zone, and it's sat where Bitcoin is on that weekly resistance zone. We need it to bang out, come out here, test the 0.8957, come back down, retest off here, and then fly. That's what we're looking for with Brett. But Brett looking really bullish as well, like 2 weekly candles, now probably going to end up green. Like I said, this was just a whistle-stop tour. I'll do a more in-depth review when I have a bit more time. But right now, Bitcoin on track, looking good. As I mentioned, we should have been accumulating in spot at minimum. We have been scalp trading on the upside to certain altcoins like Brett and Casper. And I think, yeah, really from where my sentiment is, it looks like I want to see a weekly close here, and I want to see the start of next week. Start of next week is kind of key. Or next week's candle is actually more key than this week's candle, because we need to determine where that's heading. And also one other chart that I failed to show you guys was the historic descending wedge that we've now broken out of. Technically, if we were taking that from the top to the bottom, I'd say it's about 6%, right? And we're taking out from the breakout, which is around, let's just say it's there. Yeah, so we're coming into around these levels, the 60.5, 60.6, just around that region. That's where we need to be looking out for Bitcoin's next price target and see where it kind of ends up. And actually just coinciding with that, if we go into the rising wedge, I mean, if this does go and touch something, it'd be here, right? So if I extended that, funnily enough, that would hit here in the next day or two, right? So, yeah, just something to watch out for. Like I said, bullish so far, and retests have been confirmed many times on the smaller time frames. On the higher time frames, we've still not broken many of these EMA ribbons, and we are still yet to test this trend line here, which is, you know, the most key one. We need to flip it and then send. All right, guys, that's it for this one. I will be around later this weekend to do a more in-depth video, but that's